Hands up!
The actions that happened in Minneapolis, they're inexcusable is what they are.
Color shouldn't matter, so we all should stick together at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, it's not like that.
Accountability is what's going to make us rise and to give us that justice that we're looking for.
So we're here to support our community. Our community is upset. We're upset. Everybody's upset of what happened.
Him kneeling on that Mr. Floyd's neck was disturbing to everybody that saw it. No reason for it. And those other three officers failed in their job.
I just want all the racism to stop and all of us to love each other.
All in this together for something bigger than themselves.
We want to show people that we really do care.
My daughters are part African American, and I want them to have the same opportunities that everyone else would have.
It's time that Black people get the justice that they deserve.
I can't breathe now. I can't breathe.
What happened to George Floyd is absolutely unacceptable. We won't stand for that here in the city of New Britain.
We belong to you guys. I belong to you.
The young people, again, they have a right to protest. They have a right to have a voice. There's a way to do that.
We hear sorry too much. To be sorry and to really mean it, you have to do something different.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dennis House. Welcome to this special live Thursday night edition of Face the State. We are focusing tonight on the fallout from the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, which is having a deep impact here in Connecticut in the form of demonstrations and some pretty frank conversations. Now, Governor Lamont usually joins us for these Thursday night conversations, but he is attending a vigil at this hour, so we'll be joined by the Lieutenant Governor, Susan Bysiewicz, momentarily. But first, I want to bring in a leader who has been at the forefront of these racial discussions, Pastor Kelsey Hopson of the Mount Olive AME Zion Church in Waterbury. And Pastor, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Dennis, for having me.
I want to first of all ask you, as you watch these demonstrations, what goes through your mind?
First of all, just really grieved at the recent incidents and those things that have been occurring in our nation. I empathize with those who are protesting, and I sympathize with their frustrations. Many misunderstand the protest. I believe that there is much justified frustration relative to the protests, and it's important that we understand the root of the protest. People are eager to be heard. People are eager to be seen. And the message that I have for the protesters is that we hear you and we see you. The nation hears you and the nation sees you.
Pastor, we have been seeing looting and rioting in other parts of the nation, but not here in Connecticut. Why do you think that is?
I was really, first of all, the leadership here. I was really encouraged when I saw an article from the Hartford area, the police department. They were in solidarity with the protesters, and rather than antagonizing those protesters, they actually knelt with the protesters and engaged the protesters, having meaningful dialogue. And I believe that this is something that has really been key and a great approach to encouraging solidarity.
Pastor, how do we move forward as a community here in Connecticut? What kind of advice do you have for the people across our great state tonight?
One of the things, rather than be defensive, to make intentional efforts to engage and to encourage meaningful conversations. And these conversations should flow from places of compassion and courage, and should be contextual, historically speaking, and also an acknowledgement of the complexities of race as a social construct. It's not enough to stand for justice, but to stand against injustice in proactive and sustainable ways. I believe this is important, and I see this happening throughout the state.
Pastor, I want to ask you, growing up as a man of color, did you experience any problems with police at all?
Yes, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I grew up in Arlington, Kentucky, and as it is throughout the entire nation, there's a certain amount of distrust between law enforcement and our community. However, I also had the benefit. My father was chief of police in the small town that I am from, and so yes, there were problems. I grew up in situations where I heard stories about individuals being unjustly killed and mistreated by police officers. And so, yes, there's a tangible fear and distrust of the police department.
Do you believe that racial relations are better here in our state than in other states?
I believe that that we are taking strides in the right direction. However, I also believe that it's important that we take intentional efforts to transform, ongoing efforts to transform the culture, to acknowledge our own, to be informed, to educate ourselves on issues of race, so that then we can acknowledge our own practice of injustice and the ways in which we've possibly been complicit to the same. To have a change of mind and heart around injustice, and then to practice love and justice in ways that's equitable, that help to correct, to right societal wrongs.
Pastor Kelsey Hopson, we thank you so much for joining us remotely tonight because of the coronavirus crisis. We cannot have any guests in person, but I promise you I'll come visit you at your church very soon as we can, as soon as it's safe to do so. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.